Hi guys, Tracy here with the follow-up to my haul video from last week. Last week I posted a haul video from Michael's. I showed some Jane Davenport stuff that I got. I didn't find everything that I wanted from Jane Davenport, but I still was able to spend a pretty penny there getting some of the stuff that I also wanted. And so then I went over to Chapters and bought some books. And in that video, I promised that I would make another video that I showed the books. And I actually shot that, but I can't find the footage, so I'm just going to refilm it today. So this is the following week that I'm publishing this one. These are some other books that I just took out. I thought if I'm going to talk about books, I'll talk about these ones too, but I'm going to show you in detail what I bought last week and talk a little bit about why I bought it and what I plan to do with it. And then I'll show you some of my all-time favorite books that I just wanted to share with you guys. If I'm talking about books, I thought I better talk about the books I know I like. So we're going to start with this one. This one is called Creative Girl, Mixed Media Techniques for an Artful Life, and it's by Danielle Donaldson. And this book was highly recommended to me from Stephanie, but then also since I showed a little snippet of it in my haul video that I did last week, many of you have commented and said that it's your favorite mixed media book, your watercolor Bible, or lots of different comments on how helpful this book is. So I have not had a chance to really dig into this book, but it is so beautifully illustrated. Look at this. Just look at this page. It is amazing. It is just such a beautiful, beautiful book. I'm not going to show you all of it, but I will tell you what the contents include. So the first one is called Couch Creative, Artsy Things to Do When You're Hanging Out on the Couch, in the Kitchen, or on the Road. The next chapter is called Colorful, Working with a Big Watercolor Palette and Pattern Paper. The third chapter is called Layer Goodness, Adding Depth to Your Art with Light Shadows and Lots of Cool Layers. The fourth chapter is called Silent Type, Storytelling Through Art with Little or No Text. Creative Girl, Creating Girls That Channel Your Stories. Hot Mess, Learning to Walk Away When Your Art Takes a Turn for the Worse. Creative Repurposing, Where New Ideas Buddy Up with Unfinished Projects, Artwork Gone Awry. Extra Love is Little Glimpse into some of my favorite art. So you can tell just by the chapters that it is going to be a really great book. And look at the beautiful illustration. As I mentioned, it talks about supplies, and then the Couch Creative talks about making stash stations. It talks about doodles and shows some examples. Colorful is all about blending colors, mixing colors, doing swatches, and that sort of thing. And then we have some layering, and I got a couple of good ideas already. There was a layout that I did where I did some, let me see, some of this, I think. Wait a minute, where is it? Somewhere on here. They show sewing and then going over it with watercolor, and I just thought that was so beautiful that I had to try it. It shows how she makes her beautiful girls, and yeah, it's just like, it's a really, really beautiful book. Oh, it's so pretty. So that is the first book that I got, and I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to dive into this book. Then I got this other book called How to Draw Almost Everything, an illustrated source book. And I am in love with this book. It's exactly what it sounds like. It tells you step by step how to draw almost anything. So the first little section is about the materials and supplies that you might want. And then it has some warm-ups where it teaches you to practice drawing different lines and shapes and kind of like the building blocks of what's to come. And then what I really like about this book is how nicely it's set up with all these chapters. So it has a chapter on animals, and then within the animals, it's like the green pages down here are land animals, and then we have water animals, and then birds are the pink pages. Yellow looks like it's bugs and insects. And then there's like weird animals and like strange unidentified mysterious animals, so mermaids and vampires and stuff like that. And then the next chapter is people, and then after that we have plants, and then there's food, and then there's around the house, and buildings and architecture, and then transportation. And so the reason, there's even a planner section at the very back that shows you how to draw little things for your planner, like, dentist appointments and coffee shops and that sort of thing, and payday. What I love about this book, I'm just going to show you a couple of pages. What I love about it is how it breaks down a shape like this into its little steps so that you can easily make this, and I don't even know what that animal is, but the raccoon I'm more likely to draw. It just, it's a very illustrated, cartoony, rudimentary type of a drawing, which makes it really accessible to someone like me who's not all that great at drawing. But I just basically want to be able to, if I'm doing an art journal page or something and I have, for some reason, I need like a fork or like a coffee cup or something, I want to be able to look up just everyday shapes. Like there's a coffee maker, for example. That's the kind of thing that I might want to incorporate into my art journals or my like my traveler's notebooks and stuff. And so I thought that this would make a really nice resource. So that is How to Draw Almost Everything, and the author is Chika Miyata, I think is how you pronounce the name. It's a beautiful book too. It has like this really nice paper. This is almost like a watercolor paper, but it's smoother. And yeah, I really like it. I really like this book a lot. Great source book. And then the last book that I bought at Michael's at Chapters, is this 5-minute sketching people, super quick techniques for amazing drawings. And the author is Pete Scully. And as you can see, this one is quite a bit more realistic than this drawing book. And at first when I looked at it, I thought, I can't buy that book because it looks too advanced for me, too difficult, and I can't imagine ever being able to draw nearly as well as this guy can. But although, I think that if anybody can draw, I am a firm believer that anybody can draw if you just put in the time and practice. However, I don't have enough time to practice to be the kind of drawer that I would like to be. So that's why I'm looking for shortcut methods. And so in my art journaling, I will use a lot of stock images. I sometimes buy clip art and images, and I'll use magazine images, and then I'll gesso over it and then draw my own sketchy version of the same artwork or the same, like, of photographs, for example. So I try to do my own workarounds that allow me to do illustrative type techniques in my art journals that don't require me to actually learn how to draw. But what made me buy this book, even though it seems a little more advanced than what I'm really ready for and will probably ever be ready for, I wanted to buy it because it talks about some just really interesting principles that even if I never really become as good as this, it still might be helpful to know. For example, the size of a body is the size of, I think it's 8 heads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 heads including the head, right? And I think that's just helpful for a novice like me to know. And it has facial features, and I've taken quite a few classes on how to draw a face, so I feel like I kind of already knew that. But it has things like, how to draw hair in a hurry, quick composition. It gives you little tips like make people of all different sizes to be more interesting. When looking at the directions in a scene, so these people are all looking different ways, they're not all just facing forwards and that sort of thing, to just make your drawings more interesting. And if you're not an artist, these are things that you just might not know, so it's nice to have it all written in a book. And anyhow, I thought that it was kind of a cool book to have more for the long term and just for interest's sake, and to kind of glean little bits here and there. Some of it will just be too advanced for me, but some of it will be useful little tips. I mean, I picked up a couple of tips just browsing through it in the bookstore, so I thought it would be worth it. And I like the idea of 5-minute sketching people. So the idea is that it's all about how to do quick drawing, and that appeals to me. So those are the 3 books that I bought, and I'm really pleased with them so far. I haven't had a chance to do a whole lot of close reading of them, but I did try a couple of things from this book, and I've got this one handy just to draw upon. This is not something I'm going to sit down and read cover to cover as much as just look things up when I need to. So while I'm talking about books, I thought I would draw your guys' attention to these 2 books, which are wonderful art journaling books. This one is called Art Journal Freedom, and this one is called Art Journal Courage, and they're both by Dina Wakley, and she has beautiful artwork, of course. And what I really love about this one, the first one, Art Journal Freedom, is that at the beginning it talks about tools like most books do and supplies, but then what it does is it walks you through a whole bunch of design principles and applies them to art journal pages. So these are principles that we might already be familiar with if we've learned design principles in terms of scrapbooking, but it talks about how they apply to art journaling, which could be very different. They're similar, of course, the same principles apply, but you have different opportunities with art journaling for things like repetition and symmetry that you just don't get a chance to really carry out the same way on a scrapbook page. So for example, symmetry and asymmetry, and it's more than just a page that tells you what is symmetry and asymmetry. Like, it actually goes through and spends several pages talking about each principle and really showing you lots of examples. And then there's always so it introduces a principle, talks about it quite thoroughly, and then introduces a technique that you can use using that principle. And then it's on to the next principle, which is white space, continuance, and closure. And again, it talks about that in quite a lot of detail, and then there will be a project that goes with that, and then proximity. And it goes on and on through a number of different design principles. The other thing I really love about this book is that it has a wonderful section on color theory. And I've read this several times over and taken extensive notes on it, and really love this section on the color wheel and use of color. So that's very, very handy to have. And I haven't gotten as far, the black and white part and everything after that. So really, really wonderful book. I love this book. Art Journal Courage is her more recent book. I don't know when exactly it was published. Let me see if I can see. I can't tell. It doesn't have the same like inside sheet that tells you when it was published, but anyhow, I think it's a fairly new book. Again, it starts with tools and materials. Each book is its own, like, you don't have to read this book before you read this book. This one doesn't focus quite so much on design principles as much as it does on some journaling techniques. So it talks about prompts and handwriting and courage to draw and tracing, and so it's basically journaling and drawing and painting, and it does talk quite extensively about drawing faces and altering photos and painting over photographs. I do this all the time in my art journal. I paint over photographs all the time. I love it. Talks about using your silhouette, courage to layer. So there are some techniques in this book that I have already tried even before I bought the book, but I really love having all of these ideas all in one place, and I really like that this book it really goes quite extensively into drawing, journaling, and drawing faces. So that's what I like this book for. And then these 2 are what I would consider all-time classics for scrapbookers who may or may not be into mixed media. This is the Scrapbookers Handwriting Workshop. I have talked quite a lot about this book in the past from time to time. And what I really love about this book is that it goes, first of all, again, most books talk about tools and workspace and that sort of thing. This book talks a lot about what are some of the features of text and font so that you can be aware of what you need to focus on, like shape and size and spacing and slant. And it talks also about like how to make your handwriting more neat, so how to fix common problems and that sort of thing. And then it goes through and it introduces journaling fonts. So this one is the one that I have basically adapted to my handwriting. So I have a kind of a version of this that I use as my regular everyday handwriting now. And then the way that it works is it introduces a font, it shows it to you, and I always read the characteristics of the font because it really helps you to understand why it is the way that it is and what makes it interesting and unique. And then when you go to actually make it, you are aware of things like the fact that it's taller than it is wide and that sort of thing. So it shows you what the brush strokes are for making that font, and the uppercase and the lowercase, and then it also gives you a practice section, although I never use the practice sections. And it also gives you a variation or two on each of the fonts as well. So where are the variations on this one? Maybe there aren't. Yeah, alternatives. So there are two different alternatives here for this one. So then there's the next font, and it goes through and it introduces a whole lot of fonts, and then it also goes through, so first it gives you journaling fonts, and then it gives you title fonts. It basically does the same thing for each of the different fonts. And it gives you some scrapbook page examples and stuff of how people have used them. What I don't love about this book is the format. I don't love that you kind of have to flip it and then like you flip it over here, and then I always forget which way am I going. So do I turn it over this way and flip, or do I flip it now? And I end up always getting kind of mixed up and backwards. This book comes inside of this dust jacket, like with the back cover sticking in this. And I've only recently removed it from that because A, it doesn't have any, like it's exactly the same, and B, except I guess you don't get the back cover, but B, it's just much, much easier to handle as a single book that goes one way instead of having these flaps that are flopping around on you while you're trying to flip this, turn the pages and stuff. So I do like it more now that I took the dust cover off of it, but it's still not a great format. I really wish that it was just an open and closed book. It would be much easier to use if it were just an open and closed book. I do appreciate a spiral binding on this kind of a book though, because I tend to practice this in bed at night, and I like having it like this, and then I'll just put my practice journal right on top of it and practice like this. So this is an all-time recommendation of mine. I love this book and I highly recommend it. And then the other book that I often recommend is this doodle book. It's called I should tell you the exact name of this one. This book is called the Scrapbookers Handwriting Workshop, and it is by Crystal Jeffrey Rieger. My second biggest recommended book is Creative Doodling and Beyond, Inspiring Exercises, Prompts, and Projects for Turning Simple Doodles into Beautiful Works of Art. This one is by Stephanie Corfee, and this is another book that has lots of ideas and room for practice, and I never use the practices inside of the book. I always use my own journals, but it has so many ideas. I always find that these are just my practice sheets, but I always find that I run out of ideas for doodling, and so having a book like this with so many ideas, like look at all those borders and all of those corners, that's really amazing. And alphabets and little bits and doodly things, butterflies and flowers, and then there's projects and practice sheets and different exercises to help you kind of loosen up and be free with it and that sort of thing. Yeah, just lots of examples. It's a really, really nice book. I love it. Even just the cover has lots of examples of how to doodle and different ideas for marking on your art journals or your scrapbook pages. So I hope that you found this helpful. These are just my swatches for my gel pens, because I often doodle with my gel pens. So I hope that you guys found this video helpful. These are my 3 new books, and then my, I guess, 4 old books that I like to recommend. So thanks so much for watching, and have a really great scrappy week.